Hello there, everyone. Can I try again in English? Hello there, everyone. That's actually the first words I think I've said today. That's probably why they came out so poorly. Well, let me turn that music all the way down. Hello, everyone, and how are you doing? So I hope I am live. That is the plan. I tried doing a new setup today with YouTube, so who knows? Can you guys hear me in the chat? Can you give me a little shouty-outy confirmation everything is going all right? Yeah, so happy Sunday to you. Welcome to Weekend Winters, where we faff about for a bit, and then generally we watch some PragerU videos and dunk on them. Eventually, I think PragerU is going to catch on to this, and they're going to be like, where, they're going to like slap me down with copyright stuff, and I'll have to beg for fair use rights. But anyway, till then, let's just go with it. How are you guys doing today? Let me actually put up the chat here a little bit. I'm going to go into studio mode so I never mix up which screen I am on. Hello, chatsies. You can hear me. Thank you for the confirmation. For some reason, I need to up this. That's on 90%. Okay. Occasionally, I'm like, how old am I that I can't read things at a distance? But when it's at 90% and it's like literally more than my arm's length away, I think that that's fair to turn up the size a little bit. Yes, happy Sunday to you guys. I'm looking a little bit cloudy, fuzzy. I don't quite know why. I have actually cleaned off my camera lens. So, but I hope you guys are having a good weekend. It's been, as you guys might have known from the happy hour that I did with Kevin, it's been an interesting week with mega people doing awful, awful white rapping. That was amazing. And all of that other stuff with the Trump impeachment, more ties to connecting Russia, for instance, to British politics, really starting to see the global efforts of Russia expanding outwards and trying to undermine the NATO alliance, undermine democracies, undermine our country's stability and our political structures, really. Oh, is it a good night for you, DN fan, I should say? Well, good. I hope you have a good evening. Actually, I'm gonna swap this around because it's really hard to read across in the corner. I'm just gonna do things that make me more comfortable. Right. So in Weekend Winters, like I said, we've been doing some PragerU videos, and it's really just a way to both engage our brains, but not that much, because Prager, and so it's always a challenge if we can live fact check nonsense in the show. Now I see that 250 has some links, so I'll go ahead and open those as possibilities. If I can I? Can I open a link in a new? Erg. No, I cannot. Alright, so try this. That link doesn't work. Alright, how about this one? That link, second link, seemed to work. Just have to pull it up, and let's see what you got for us, 250. Ah, that didn't work either! Sorry, we're not having any luck with your links. That one didn't work, and that one didn't. No, neither of these worked. Sorry. It's all very sad. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Now, how do I go back? Okay. So we're just gonna go to PragerU. Sorry, 250. You're gonna have to, like, give me the names of them or something, because clearly the linkage thing isn't working. Before we start on the PragerU video, or while it loads up, I just want to check with the chat, see how you guys are doing. So, 250 says, at the Trump rallies, people are now wearing shirts that say read the transcript. Yeah, and you want to know the really hilarious thing about that? Is that it's a memorandum. It's a memo of a transcript. It's not actually the transcript. Trump hasn't released the full transcript. That the one that went onto the, illegally was placed on a server that it wasn't supposed to be on. Yeah, and so if they haven't actually read the transcript. Nobody has read the transcript. Only thing that people in the public have access to is a memo on the conversation. And it says on there, not a transcript. Even if the transcript did exonerate him, imagine supporting a leader, and the most positive thing you can say about him is basically, he hasn't committed treason. Well, that's, yeah, but it's true. I'll just leave it at that while I sip my coffee. Yeah, I see that Mithril says in response to 250 in the chat, yeah, I saw those t-shirts. My initial response was, I have you idiots unlike you. Yeah, I'm sure you have read the memo. And that's why you know it's a memo and not the direct transcript. See if this one works a bit better. No, I ain't getting anything. You're gonna have to do the video title, 250. Put that in the chat instead, and I can search then. If you give me the title of the video. Sorry guys, I feel like I have a piece of fuzz in my eyes, and I got some, or hair, or an eyelash, or something. And as a consequence, I just keep seeing this fuzz in my eye line, and so okay, hopefully that's sorted now. But if you do the title of the video, I can search for that. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the is it IT? I don't know. Sorry, American culture. I haven't been keeping up with you. But is it the guy's named IT who was talking about his daughter and going with her to make sure her hymen was intact? All right, first we'll just finish up about the transcript. Yeah, T1. Sorry, not IT. TI? I'm so old. Although, to be fair, I only heard about this guy in the last 2 days. He didn't exist to me before then because I'm outside of American popular culture. Sorry, it just doesn't. I don't get exposed to it anymore. But here's the thing. I would love anyone wearing, if you see someone wearing a t-shirt that says read the transcript, I would love for you to give them a little quiz. I'm like, well, what did you think of this paragraph? And then give them an accurate paragraph and see if they recognize it. And then, what did you think of this paragraph? And then give a completely false one and see if they go, I don't remember that in there. I don't think any of those people at that rally have read it. And, okay, it's a little bit, it can be amusing to laugh at the credulousness or just the blind loyalty of Trump people, but it is, to me, very terrifying the way that we saw this before when the Republicans, people who knew that Trump was trouble, and they went along with the populist surge, the emotional hate wave that backed up Trump. And of course, it's not all white people are openly white supremacists and support Trump. And I certainly don't understand the 8% of African American or black voters who would support Trump. I don't understand voting against your economic interest in that way. But when that whole populist wave, came crashing down over Republicans who are more elite and, more like business savvy and, the kind of like the upper echelons, because a party, just like the Democratic Party, you have elites and then you have like a populist wing, because that's what happens when your parties get big enough. But they just thought, oh, we'll just count on the Democrats. We'll just assume that the Democrats will win this race and we won't actually, come out against Trump. We can throw all in for Trump and the Democrats will hold the line. And they didn't. Like, Democratic turnout because of GOP gerrymandering, interference with voter ID laws. It's like 100,000 people in Wisconsin are estimated to have been turned away from the polls, and Trump won by 20,000. And Russian interference with agitation and putting out fake information. The system didn't hold, and we got Trump. And it just feels like a replay of that the Republicans right now are counting on Democrats to follow procedure, to be open and transparent, to play fair, to try to do all the things that require legitimacy, find ways to tick those boxes. And instead of doing their part when it comes to their oath of office, the Republicans are like, yeah, we're just going to pretend like we're the defense of the president. We're going to count on the Democrats, again, to protect our institutions. And you can't, when you got a fascist in the White House and 40% of the country who are possibly willing to, accept the breaking of the rule of law, accept the destruction of basic constitutional principles, like the House has the sole authority to conduct an impeachment trial. The whole thing about Putin setting people against each other, it's very effective, because I don't want to be in a country run by white supremacists, pro-fascist, pro-authoritarian, would-be dictators. And the Republicans don't do their part to protect America. Someone was saying that, I think it was, again, MSNBC, I can't remember what I was watching precisely, but one of the guests said it wouldn't actually be wrong to call what the Republicans are doing aiding and abetting a criminal. So they know that it is against federal law. If someone has committed a crime and you try to give them aid or comfort or hide them or enable them or protect them in any way, you can be charged with aiding and abetting. And by playing the defense attorney for Trump, by trying to disrupt these hearings, Republicans are essentially trying to let Donald Trump get away with a crime as opposed to upholding their oaths of office. And I didn't like, how do you even work with people like that? How do you even acknowledge that their views are tolerable as, within the framework of how government operates? But they're white men. This is it. They're white men with a lot of money and power, and so they think they can just say anything. And for 40% of the country, they can just say anything. And another big thing about this, sorry, I meant to get to Prager, but I'm ranting now, is that Trump's base, are indoctrinated evangelical white voters. I mean, that is his core base. And these people are not given to rational critical thinking. They accept monarchy as a principle of their faith. So it's not a big leap to make Trump their new Jesus. And a lot of them do. Franklin Graham, Paula, whatever her name is, that there are people who want to turn Trump into a modern day messiah and use that, his loading up with judges that are going to destroy abortion as a justification for all the other harms that he does our secular government. Because these people aren't interested in equality under the law or the rule of law. They are interested in righteousness and God's will and God's authority and obedience. And that is really scary to me. People who are obedient to secular leaders are scary. How is my sound, by the way? It looks like I'm a little bit soft. So should I turn that up a bit, you guys? You can tell me. I can also move the mic a bit closer. That is another option. So, how is my sound, you guys? Is it alright? You can just let me know. Houston is trying to get rid of elected judges because they elected 19 black women as judges. Yeah. That actually would, I mean, I don't know if you have a story for like a newspaper story that you can link to, but I am not credulous. I mean, insofar as I would like to see the actual article, but I would not immediately say, seems okay. Okay, good. Thank you, Mithra. That would be an outrageous, oh, there's no way that, you know, people in Houston are trying to get rid of black women who have been duly elected. Of course they would. Are you kidding me? I'm not saying everyone in Houston is bad. I'm just saying there's a lot of racists everywhere, including in Texas. Not sure Republicans are hoping Dems are going to save democratic institutions. I think that there are upper echelon Republicans who just assume that the Constitution can take whatever effery, trying to keep the stream monetized, they do, and that it really won't damage it in the end. But they're destroying people's confidence. They're destroying legitimacy of congressional oversight investigations, all kinds of stuff. Anyway. All right. Oh, you're gonna send it over to Twitter? Okay. Yeah, also, oh, if you're not a mod, you can't. Yeah, you're not a mod, you can't put up links. Sorry. I don't know you well enough. Kazik. But if you stick around and you seem pretty cool, I'll give you a wrench. I don't see anyone in the chat that I know that deserves a wrench. Christy Winters, how are judges elected in the U.S.? Well, it depends on what level we're talking about. In the federal level, they are appointed judges. So Congress appoints, actually the Senate appoints judges, which is why Mitch McConnell was so obstructionist on Obama judges, and now Trump is trying to stack them in as fast as he can. So, sent the link. Okay, thank you for that link. Now, on the state level, you might have, so there are the federal judges, like the federal courts, and then the federal appellate courts, and then, of course, there's the Supreme Court. All of those are appointed. But when it comes to the states do it in their own ways because all of them are independent. In my home state, I can tell you from Wisconsin, we elected, actually, because there was really big reforms by progressives in the 1920s. At the time, they were Republicans, but they were the progressive movement. One of the things, there was a big problem with party corruption and internal party politics, people being picked for offices rather than all, there being natural democratic processes. So one of the early ways the progressive movement in Wisconsin, the 1920s, Bob LaFollette, famously, fighting Bob LaFollette if you're from Wisconsin anyway, they reformed it and decided that it was better to put elections in the hands of the populace rather than the hands of the party bosses. So they created a whole bunch of nonpartisan elections, and they put the nonpartisan elections on a different year from the partisan elections. So they are off, like if they're off the Republican and Democratic partisan races for on the state level or the federal level. So in my, they haven't changed it as far as I know, but in Wisconsin, you vote for sheriff, you vote for all your county supervisors, you vote for the coroner, you vote for you vote for judges, local judges, and you even vote for, the district attorney, I think. And then on the state level, there's a Supreme Court, which is a statewide position that people run for and win, again, nonpartisan in theory, but obviously the parties align with the interests of the candidates for Supreme Court Justice of Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, that are, closer to what their worldview is. And that is also a nonpartisan race that is elected statewide. So it's a bit of a, oh, you messaged it? Oh, okay. I don't like putting my messages up. I don't like putting my DFs, so I'm going to move that over. Because I don't think people who send me messages should get broadcast if they don't want to. All right. You sent me a link. I'm accepting it. All right. I see it now. I see it. Move it back over. Oh, yeah. Oh, what a bunch of racist jerks. Because of course they would. Of course they would. From Saturday, November 9th. Very topical. Very, very topical. Houston elects 19 black women judges, so Texas governor and legislature move to end judicial elections. This is white supremacy. That's what this is. This is conservative white supremacy. As soon as you get a little bit of equality, they want to take it away. Because they don't believe anyone except evangelical white men, cis men, straight men, have any ability to, have any legitimacy or credibility when it comes to ruling. Oh, that's so annoying. All right, so, yeah, this is simply reprehensible. I think that's a good way of putting it. Hold on, let me swap my screen a little bit here because I got all kinds of confused. Democrats in the minority somehow managed to stop the passage of the bill. So Governor Abbott has set up a commission to study how judges are chosen, or just as likely, to study how Republicans can more successfully subvert the will of the voters. If left up to the voters, ending judicial elections would almost certainly fail. The Republicans in North Carolina tried to pass a referendum just last year to accomplish it, but it was roundly defeated. Another example, Republicans do not support democracy. Yeah, I actually think Republicans fear democracy because it's slowly eroding their white supremacist advantage in all walks of life. And it galls them to, have to listen to a black woman and show her respect. I'm sure that this is just something that they think is unnatural because they're not used to seeing anyone else in power except people who look like them. And that's not how S works. That's not how it works. It's not supposed to, unless you're a white supremacist and you think that, you don't have legitimacy. I mean, I think it is important to remember, and we don't, that the reason why the Founding Fathers gave such equality in status and abilities and, eligibility and all that stuff is because they thought that they were keeping the pool of applicants who could participate down to white guys just like them. And it's easy to be equal with someone that you think is just like you. The test for equality is when you have someone with a different background, a different worldview. Then, do you still think they have the same rights to vote and to participate in elections and to be represented and to stand as a representative and represent their life experiences and concerns in halls of power? Okay, myself is sleepy, Eva. Eva. Oh, you can doze off again if you get really tired. All right, so let's see. Article over Twitter. Hello, comrades. Hello, peoples. The videos were called "How the Iraq War Was Won," and lost. World War I, the war that changed everything. I'm not a history person, so we can look at those. I feel more comfortable debunking PragerU videos that I know better. But then again, that's the whole point of the challenge, right? Is to get out of to see how badly PragerU does within just don't say anything, Candace, because we don't want to hear your uninformed opinions. All right. So how do people feel about looking at World War I, the war that changed everything, recommended by Tufidi? Are people okay with that? I'm just going to wait because it's going to lag, so I'm going to have a sip of my coffee, and why don't you have a sip of whatever you're sipping on as well? Did I mention how much I love coffee yet today? I love coffee. I really do. Well, I see no objection in the chat. I gotta get ready to vote in the Spanish elections. Yes, please do. Vote early and in every opportunity given. Spain's politics are something I know pretty much nothing about, And I know that there's a lot of stuff going on, which makes me even more intimidated to talk about it because I'm sure I'm going to get things wrong. But I can always encourage people to participate in legitimate elections. So please go. All right, so seems like we're going to check out World War I. Now, before we start that, I'm going to have to turn on the desktop audio so you can hear it. There was a little kitty purr. I'm sorry, I amuse myself sometimes. Let's do a sound check, and I'll make sure I'm not blowing you guys out of the water with this volume.
As an historian...
Ooh! Yes, a little bit I am. So I think it's easier to maybe bring this guy down a little bit. Okay, before we start... really don't like how... Alright. I am going to do a technical solution to this lighting problem that involves a clothespin. Boom. How's that? Did I fix it for you? I think I did. Yeah, that lighting was terrible. I couldn't keep up with that. There, you can see the corner of my room now. I think what's more important, that I'm centered or that my background is centered? I think it's more important that I am centered. Alright, let's do one more sound check, see if that's slightly less in your face.
As an historian, I'm often asked if I could stop one event in modern history from happening, what would it be?
Seems okay to me, you guys? Is that alright? Now, oh god. Sorry, that reaction was my eyes had scanned down the page to try to look at the length of the abstract because I was deciding whether or not we should read it at the start, and I saw the word Bolshevik. And that's what I was I was like, oh god, that was me reacting, real-time reaction to the Bolshevik thing. Alright. So, here's what it says in the abstract, because you guys can't see it because I'm in the way. Think of all the horrors of the 20th century, the Holocaust, the Bolshevik Revolution, the Cold War. Were it not for the assassination of one Austro-Hungarian Archduke in 1914, none of those events would have ever happened. History and author Andrew Roberts explains. Can I just, like World War I was, understand that the series of events after the Archduke Ferdinand, was assassinated and the agreements put Europe on a path to war, and we see now retroactively how those steps were taken. But as I say, it's like none of those things would have happened. We don't know what would have happened in an alternative history when we didn't have the First World War. So again, I just don't think those are particularly useful things to claim. But it's not like PragerU thinks that the accurate historical information is important either. So 250 says, this guy calls himself an historian. I say an historian because I swallow the H. The H, as it were. But I think what he actually writes is apologetics for the British Empire. Alright, well, let's see who this dude is. Alright, he's historian and author Andrew Roberts. It is always a good idea to check out these people that they put up first, because they say, oh, he's an historian. You go, oh, this guy has some credibility. And then you look him up and you find out they've got some really dodgy views. So let's see. Okay, he's at King's in the UK. Visiting professor. Alright, let's see. Churchill, he did a book on Churchill. Oh, he was praised by Henry Kissinger. So, context. Alright, his public commentary has appeared in several periodicals such as the Daily Telegraph, which is a conservative paper, and the Spectator, which I also think is a conservative paper. He's known for his work Storm of War. He received a British Army Military Book of the Year award. I have no idea what that is. Elsewhere, his work has sometimes been criticized. For example, The Economist, who described one book as a giant political pamphlet larded with the author's prejudices, with sneers at those who do not share them, and with errors. Alright, thanks to Fiddy for asking that we check into this guy, because Apparently he sounds not as bad as a sort of Bill O'Reilly, hack before he got booted out of his job for being a sexual stalker and perv. Yes, so going on with this. However, much of Robert's work has been praised. The Sunday example. Okay. Let's see. Historical and socio-political viewpoints. Oh, I don't know if I want to go this deeply into it. But I think it is important to look at this as the context of his views. I'm sure Kevin would be swearing if he were here. In terms of more recent history, Roberts wholeheartedly embraced Thatcherism. He has remained a staunch backer of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and her socio-political legacy. In Roberts' opinion, Thatcher's insights to push the UK into a path which kept it out of the euro, while still having strong ties to European economies, has been validated by the Eurozone crisis in the aftermath of the world's economic recession. I think Europe is doing better than the UK in terms of long-term prospects these days. After Tony Blair resigned as Prime Minister, Roberts assessed him as an exemplary war leader. I guess being a slavish lapdog to George Bush makes him a good war leader in this guy's opinion, with his vigorous prosecution of the war against terror, which would leave him regarded as a highly successful Prime Minister. Alright, so you can see this guy he was appointed president of the Cambridge University Conservative Association. All right. Thank you. That 250, that's okay. If I can just stop changing the size of the text. What are you doing? Stop it. Just escape. Escape. This is annoying. I'm gonna get out of this now. I don't know what button I press that makes it do that. But this guy is a right-winger. He's a pro-Thatcher, pro-Tony Blair war right-winger. Important to know now, as we listen to his framing of a story, that let's see if it has any factual basis. It's definitely going to be a lot of spin. By the way, before I start, just to the chat, anything else? He's known for a very right-wing interpretation of history. Thank you, Mithril. Never trust a white man in a suit. Okay, I'm gonna be fair. I go to well, no, actually, this is it. When I go to academic conferences, the guys there aren't wearing suits. I'm not saying all of them should be trustworthy, but yeah, when I tend to go to academic conferences, people wearing jeans or business casual, there's certainly not like a suit and tie in this unless they're giving a keynote or something. But if you're just going to give like a 20-minute paper, yeah, people will dress up, but it's not beyond seeing, like nice dark jeans with a button down and no tie. Mithril reminds me that The Spectator is a hard right magazine. Thank you. I don't have all of the British publications and their political, perhaps characterizations always memorized, so that's good. All right, Mr. White. I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts. Let's see what you have to say, and I'll go ahead and make this, back to theater mode so you guys can see. Hold on. I see now that maybe oh, that's an interesting place for me to be. How about I move myself? Can you guys see me when I'm moving myself like that? I don't know what happens. So there we go. I'll block the chat. I'll also move Kitty. Lion Kitty. Which, this would be kind of annoying though, because, or maybe I'll put myself up here. That makes more sense. Okay, hold on. I don't know if this is going out live or not, but this is what the page looks like now. Alright. So that way you can see me. Although this is kind of weird because now I'm not looking at him. But if I put myself there, alright. Sorry guys. I was very irresponsible in terms of... I'll just put myself in the corner. Christy puts Christy in the corner. Live show fun. Alright, now when I look at him, I'm looking at him. The direction is the same. You can change the layout. Yeah, we should do like tic-tac-toe or something. And then make Lion Kitty super busy. Big. No chat, just Lion Kitty. There you go. If you get tired of looking at his face, you can look at Lion Kitty. And I'm very excited to be part of a PragerU video. This is going to be fun. I'll have to watch it and like duck out of the way, perhaps. Why do people watch my show? It's such crap. All right. Here we go.
My answer is World War One.
Oh, sorry. I totally forgot his point. Like, I can't remember what the white man said. Sorry, guy. Your comments weren't important enough to stick on my brain, so we got to start again. All right.
As an historian, I'm often asked if I could stop one event in modern history from happening, what would it be? My answer is World War One. If there had been no World War One, there would have been no Russian Revolution.
You don't know that. Honestly, you can't say with certainty that there would never have been any kind of revolution in Russia because a certain event didn't take place. I just don't believe it. I don't think you can say that and be convincing. You don't know how many different, especially with a multiverse theory, right? I'm sorry. That's not convincing to me at all.
No World War Two.
Again, it might have taken place, but in a different framework or with a different counterpoint thing. And, the economics might have been the same. So again,
no Holocaust, no Cold War. And that...
Can I just say the same thing? You can't say these things never would have happened because you don't know what an alternate timeline looks like. So, coulda, woulda, shoulda, yes. A super rigorous historian. Yes, he is historianing in a rigorous way.
That doesn't even consider the millions who died in the war itself.
Same thing I said before. This is nonsense so far. You can't declaratively say these things would not have happened because we can't know. You could say maybe these things would have happened. Maybe there wouldn't have been a revolution. Maybe these people wouldn't have died. But you can't say it wouldn't have happened. It might have not have happened in the exact same way, but it might have happened.
Following the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815, Europe experienced an unprecedented period of economic growth. Brought about by the Industrial Revolution, this new prosperity spawned rapid developments in science, medicine, art, and political philosophy. The future of civilization never looked brighter.
I suppose for people in power, the things never look brighter, but if you were a woman living in this situation, if you were a poor person having their hands cut off or hanged for thieving in, Victorian England before prison reforms, yeah, prosperity for some. Prosperity for those at the top. It was still, in large part, it still is a divided situation. And industrialization created a lot of misery as well. The poor working conditions. There was no work week, right? You just worked all the time. People were sometimes living in the housing tenements from their companies, so they're basically 100% owned. If you were a white guy with property and inherited wealth, this was a really good time for you. And of course, this is the framework through which they whitewash history, always. We're always presented with the elite, white, powerful men's view of the world. Oh, look at the industry, right? Women couldn't vote. There were no child labor laws. There was no prosecution of, systematic prosecution of abuse or sex crimes or anything like that. People were, hanged for stealing. So it is a very selective, pro-white dude shine. And he wants to kind of cover up all of the other things, like marital rape was legal. And of course, we're not even going to talk about, let's talk about the existence of African Americans in the United States in the 1800s. Yeah? You want to talk about pre-war or post-Civil War? Because it was, it was obviously legally better after the Civil War, but economic opportunity was not the same as for white people. Educational foundations and educational opportunity, not the same for white people. What about Native Americans in the United States in the 1800s? So again, this is how white supremacy stains our viewpoint by making white men every person, and by just framing it in that way, you get to ignore what happened to women, what happened to people, non-white people in these time periods, and just focus on how good it was for white guys, but making it sound like it was good for everybody. What I got? Oh, hey, Cassiopeia. I got the best people who show up on Sundays. I love y'all. I have a really good time chatting with you guys. And even if it was just 4 or 5 of us, I would do this. Why am I in top chat and not live chat? What is up with that? I don't think I missed anybody, but let me see what, because I respect what you guys have to say, so let me see what you guys are saying. He looks and sounds like David Cameron. Yeah, but has he ever put any part of his body in a pig? Coulda, woulda, shoulda. He suggests that Archduke not being assassinated would have prevented the Great War. He already did. I'm sure he will. Because apparently if history is like dominoes, and if you take out one piece, you won't have the domino fall in the same, like the dominoes won't fall in the same direction. No. Future of civilization look great from the bunks of the workhouses. Bright. Precisely. Didn't the living standards of the poor actually get worse during the industrial era? Let's find out. Poverty rates, I think it would be kind of, well, of course, the problem with this is poverty. Sorry about that. I got a random. Rates of poverty pre-industrialization. Because here we go. Even industrial revolution, the standard of living. So just as a political scientist, I would say it would be dependent if we could do this analysis on whether or not this kind of data was actually being collected and how it was being collected. So let's find out. Industrial revolution and the standard of living between 1760 and 1860, technological process education and an increasing capital stock transformed England into the workshop of the world. The Industrial Revolution, as the transformation came to be known, caused a sustained rise in real income per person in England, and its effects spread in the rest of Europe. Historians agree that the Industrial Revolution was one of the most important events in history, making the rapid transition to the modern age, but they disagree vehemently about many aspects of the event. Of all the disagreements, one of the oldest is how the Industrial Revolution all affected ordinary people, often called the working classes. One group, the pessimists, argues that the standard of living for ordinary people fell, while another group, the optimists, believe that living standards rose. So there is a debate. The standard of living debate today is not about whether the Industrial Revolution made people better off, but when. The pessimists claim no marked improvement in standards or living until the 1840s or 50s. Most optimists, by contrast, believe the living standards were rising by the 1810s or the 1820s or even earlier. So there appears to be a debate, as there always is, with academics. And here, what does standard of living mean? Economic historians would like it to mean happiness, but the impossibility of measuring happiness forces them to equate standard of living with monetary measures such as real wages or income. Of course, real wages and income would be relative to how many children you are supporting, it seems to me, and other family requirements. So I don't know. Again, it just seems to me like it would be a very challenging exercise to collect the data necessary to really make an assessment. But what we do know is that it changed working patterns from people working in a seasonal way to people working all year round, and that when you have an employer to work for, you are told when to go to work. Right? You don't get to choose your hours or choose your lifestyle. So there are a lot of quality of life issues that might not be related to, you might be in a city and you might have access to more variety of the things that you can buy with the little money that you have. However, when it comes to the winter, you're still working hours and hours and hours a day, whereas people on the farms are doing, I'm not saying they're not working during the day, but like the kinds of labor they do changes. And then we can get into whole Marx's idea of alienation from labor, which I think is a really good point that a lot of, we don't talk enough about. But, all right. Wow, that was a tangent. Okay. The Lord owned the land you lived on, but they didn't own your time. Yeah, and so a lot of people, when the winter, you couldn't farm as much, so they would do other things like, if there was, I remember watching it was an earlier one. It was like Life on the Monastery Farm, a BBC documentary for people who reenacted life on property that was owned by monasteries before the dissolution of the monasteries by Henry VIII. And, they would find brine and boil it up and skim off the salt on the top and try to sell that. Or they would do little crafty things by the fire and sell those off. So there was a lot of variety to the work, and there was change across the season. And of course, you worked when the sun shines, so you worked more in the summer than you did laboring in the fields in the winter. But it wasn't like doing factory work in dangerous conditions where you could have your hand chopped off, All right. Hitting play.
And then suddenly, it all went up in flames. The fuse was lit in June 1914 in a street in Sarajevo, Bosnia. It was there that Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire...
Here it comes, Cassiopeia. Get ready to scream. Didn't you say you're going to scream if he said that it was all... Yeah, there. I swear if he suggests the Archduke not being assassinated would have prevented the Great War, you'll scream. Get ready. Here it comes.
Was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist. It should have been no more than a sad footnote in history. Instead, it changed history. Austria-Hungary, seeking to avenge the Archduke's murder...
Okay. I'm just, I'm going to point something out here. As a published author, I occasionally get published. Most recently by the Oxford University Press. Anyway, one of the things that was so important to me as an academic writer that my thesis supervisor really wanted to be really stressed when it came to writing a monograph, which is what my thesis ended up being, is that a thesis or a book like this is not a detective novel. You don't want the viewer, or the reader in this case, to have to wait till the end of your research to find out what the big deal is. What is the big story? And I can see Mithril can hear a Cassiopeia screaming across the internet at this guy. I have no idea what he is on about. I have no idea what... So my point here is, when I then wrote my thesis, and when I write every other, I've written every article since, I'm very clear on the abstract, and I'm very clear in the introduction to answer 4 questions. Always, always, always. Always, always, always. What is the question? What is... state in 1 sentence, ideally. 2 if you have to, but try to get it really down to the core question. In 1 sentence, what is the question I'm taking up in this body of writing? The other thing that you have to then say is, here's the answer that I found. And again, hopefully 1 or 2 sentences and not more. Just a little summary. Here's the question I investigated. Here's what I found. Then you have to, explain why people should believe you. And that's not saying you should believe me because I'm nice, or you should believe me because I'm a popular YouTuber, or you should believe me because, I went on Alex Jones. I think you guys know who I'm dissing here. You say, you should believe me because this is my data. This was my method. These were my results. This is what I controlled for. These are the extra tests I did. These are the controls. This is the whatever. And based on that, I drew my conclusions. And then the last thing is, here's why you should care. Why should we care that, for instance, the patterns of non-belief in America are changing such that increasingly people are identifying as religious, not religious, spiritual, but not religious at increasing rates. Why should you care about that? Why should you care about why people do it? And why should you care about what effect it might have on society? So if you have a clear question and a clear answer, and you're transparent with how you reached your conclusion, and you connect it to something that the reader cares about, then they're going to pay attention. This structure, the way that they're doing this video, it's just like I'm on a little journey. It's sort of like being on a train car, and things are coming by me, but I don't actually know where I'm going, and I don't know what the destination is, and I don't know what I should be paying attention to. And that's the other thing about clear writing, is that in a course of a piece of work, you're going to say a lot of things, and everything your reader sees for the first time, they're not going to know if that's important to remember or if that's context. And that's where the whole, what is my question? What is my answer? What are my methods? Why should you believe me? Why should you care is important, because you should flag up, this is context, but this is the point you need to take away from this, what I'm about to say. And all of the little things where you connect those. Here's the point I want you to remember. Here's the point is important here. Here's the takeaway from this analysis. And then you go back and you connect all of those things you've told people to pay attention to at the end in your wrap up. Because that's why you told them to pay attention, because it was going to be part of how you're going to draw your conclusion together. And this is just, like, I have no idea where this is going. So, anyway, so that's how you write academically. This is why writing is hard. It's not that putting words down on paper is hard. What's hard is arranging those words in such a way that your reader will exactly, or mostly, understand your meaning the first time they read it through. That's what's hard about writing. Okay, so back to the video. Sorry.
Declared war on Serbia. But before taking this drastic step, it asked for and received a blessing from its powerful ally, Germany. Serbia, knowing that it had no chance against Austria-Hungary, called on its ally, Russia, to defend it. Russia agreed. To strengthen its hand, Russia solicited French support.
Does anyone know where this is going? Like, there's a little history lesson, which I don't have too much, objection to, mostly because it's so vague as to be not, that I know of. Nothing seems wrong on its face. I just have no idea why I should care about this. Why am I listening to this? What does this have to do with anything?
Should war break out? France, ever suspicious of German intentions, assented. Germany then made a preemptive move to take France out of the war. The German command, having long planned this war, invaded France through neutral Belgium.
The problem, all I can say is that this situation could have occurred in a lot of different ways besides with the assassination of Archduke, because of these mutual, attack plans that countries had put up together, had created. So this was the thing that sparked it off, but I don't see him saying or presenting any evidence that there was no other event in Austro-Hungarian history with Serbia that could possibly have had the same effects. There's every possibility that if this Archduke wasn't, could have been something else that triggered this thing, or another thing that got Russia involved and Germany involved and yada, yada, yada. So again, his first premise that, as we said, I'm just repeating myself. So I'm going to hit play. I'm just trying to find something to react to, because so far I don't see the point of any of the story time, this bedtime story.
This prompted Britain to join France against Germany. Suddenly, the entire continent was engulfed in war. The key player was Germany. Their strategy was to punch through Belgium and France and capture Paris before the French had time to react. This was the so-called Schlieffen Plan, named after the German general who conceived it. With France conquered...
Honestly, I don't know why we're listening to this. It's not your fault, Tufidi. It's not your fault this is poorly written. But literally, other than a little bedtime story, I don't get the point of this. And we are 2.5 minutes into a 5.5 minute video.
They would turn their attention to Russia. That Germany thought it would actually work.
Oh, I see some critique in the chat, so I'm going to read that out. I think Kazik, is it alright if I just shorten that to Kazik? Says, I think his thesis is that World War I was a major event that changed everything, which is an amazing take. Major events. Sorry, I had to put on my sarcasm right there. Major events cause major changes. Breathtaking historical insight. Get it here. Cassiopeia says he's about to describe the two networks of alliances that meant any war in Europe would be a European war, and thus a world war. He seems to be neglecting that the alliances were in place long before the assassination. Yeah, exactly. He got the order of events right, but forgot to mention the web of treaties and agreements other wars had preceded this that led to this point. Also a good point, Sibwolf. And he's saying Germany had been long planning the war goes against his point. Right, yep. Wow, animation. Yes. I'm sure he will tie it to the left wing somehow. Yes, this also has to come down to the left being evil. Otherwise, what's the point of a Prager video? Come on, guys. All right.
Comes down to one man, Germany's leader, Kaiser Wilhelm II. The Emperor of Germany from 1888 until his forced abdication in 1918, Wilhelm was a profoundly unpleasant, unstable, and vicious personality. By 1914, he believed that Germany should not only dominate Europe, but the entire world. Had the Schlieffen Plan worked, Germany most certainly would have. But it didn't work. The British and the French put up stiff resistance in the West. Russia did the same in the East. The losses incurred by all sides were immediate and appalling. The widespread use, for the first time, of barbed wire, machine guns, tanks, and worst of all, poison gas.
Yeah, can we just also say that this was all guys? This all like sort of elite, white, rich, monarchist, sort of like totalitarian types. Well, I guess you could say Britain wasn't that, although it was completely racist and it didn't allow women to vote, so kind of it was. This was a problem caused by men for other men, and then the knock-on effects of all the people, the civilians who were also involved. So, you'd hope and do the Iraq War one. Well, I don't mind dunking on a bad PragerU video, 250. I'm not saying that this isn't a good one because, no, it's still crap. They're all crap. They're just crap in different ways. So don't feel bad. And the Iraq War one kind of like, I wasn't, well, it's been a while. But anyway, I'm having fun dunking on this, so.
Turns the fields of France and the steppes of Russia into vast cemeteries.
Yeah, a bunch of white guys went to war against each other. But according to some people, this is the superior race. And we spend more time killing each other, really. If you look historically, that's what Europeans were doing, killing each other. Unless, of course, you need to bond them all together against the slave population in America, which is what happened there. So then you get white as opposed to you bad German, you bad French person.
By 1917, the war was at a stalemate. Who knows how long it would have stayed that way if the United States had not been drawn in. Ironically, President Woodrow Wilson had been elected largely because he promised to keep America out of Europe's war. His attitude changed when Germany attacked American merchant ships in the Atlantic. The final straw was the infamous Zimmermann telegram.
All right, so I'm going to see what people in the chat are saying. If any one man was responsible for the war, it's Konrad von Hötzendorf, Austro-Hungarian chief of staff. He'd been spoiling for war with Serbia for years. So he was like the John Bolton of his day, is what you're saying? Mithril says, we had an awesome history teacher who made us investigate things. Good, yes. Yay, teachers. And Cassiopeia says, the assassination was both the justification he needed and the removal of the Archduke's opposition. Right. So it's not just like the fact that the Archduke died that did it. There was like a whole internal politics that he's skipping over, as well as the anti-war or anti-aggression policy that was being... Yeah, very interesting. See? PragerU. Gotta validate the USA. Oh, they know where their bread is buttered. They know all of the white guys who watch this in America who really like this stuff and consume it. So they got to do the whole, little massage there, little hand job. Can I say that and not get demonetized? We're going to find out.
In which Germany promised to give Mexico, in exchange for its military support, much of the American Southwest, including Texas.
Oh, gosh. I'm not saying that, like, that sounds like pretty good deal to me. There's a lot of people. Not everybody in Texas is bad, but a lot of them are. Okay.
The infusion of American manpower and weaponry allowed the Allies to take the initiative. The war finally ended in November of 1918. 16 million people, soldiers and...
Anyone else see this? Sorry. Oh, hey. How, you can't see me. All right, hold on. Oh, no, you can't see the number. There you go. That's it up there. Now, notice there's an asterisk right here. Sorry, that's on the wrong screen. Right here. There's an asterisk. And yet, I don't see... Maybe it's going to come up.
And civilians
were
dead.
Where?
3 million Russians.
Where Where is the
2.5
asterisk?
million Germans,
Where is the asterisk?
1.7 million French,
Where
1
is it?
million British, and 117,000 Americans.
Oh, okay. But, okay, is that it? Let me see. Is that what the asterisk is supposed to... The thing about an asterisk like this, when he's indicated in a piece of writing, you might know that people then put the asterisk next to the thing, and actually that's not an asterisk, that's a footnote. So that should be a 1, and then this should be a 1, and it shouldn't just be a hyperlink. I'm sorry, this is basic 101 undergraduate writing your essay. You should be putting the name of the article and an author as being Wikipedia and the year. You don't just stick a hyperlink on a website without like your proper footnoting in order to indicate your source. I mean, when you put an asterisk next to a thing, you're thinking, oh, there's going to be like, oh, this is only reported military deaths but not civilians or something like that. If you want to do a reference, like do a proper reference. Prager, honestly, you're modeling very, very poor.
Russia was now in the hands of Vladimir Lenin.
Very, very poor writing skills. It's very bad. All of that was wrong. I don't know who your editor is, but fire them. They make you look bad. Worse. You already look so bad, you can only look worse, and you do. Alright, so Sib Wolf wants to say, he did it. No, the US did not come in and win the war. The US was playing catch-up from the start to the end and used largely French equipment. That is, the main US contribution was manpower. Yep. So you called it again. Yeah, I'm glad you guys here in the chat have better historical framework for these kinds of things than me. Because again, this isn't my big deal, but I totally trust you guys more than him. Because it actually sounds more thoughtful and better sourced than the sorry, that's the other thing. I just realized that for a guy who works is a visiting professor at King's College, who also is an author of books. So I'm gonna have to go back now, right? They don't cite his book or his work or any real here's the thing, it's Wikipedia is fine for a starting point, but presumably with an actual historian here, they could have cited a book. They could have cited a book, digital book, website. I mean, again, I don't want to diss on Wikipedia. I'm just saying, when you put your name on something, like maybe if you've got a historian there, he has a book where he lists these out, or some other government statistics, Anyway, that I found pretty hilarious. That of all the possible sources, they did the wiki source, and not even properly referenced, not even hyperlinked properly.
It was now in the hands of Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks.
Oh, all right, sorry, we jumped from. How did we get all the way to the Bolsheviks? We got dead people. We got sort of war casualties to the Bolsheviks. I missed a step here. I was too distracted by the referencing.
And Americans. Russia was now in the hands of Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks.
All right, that just magically happened. Boom, boom. That's boom. No, there wasn't any context for that. There wasn't mass poverty, or people weren't completely being oppressed and starved to death, and they were part of a war. They were sent out without proper equipment. They're watching their sons. No, it just happened. It just happened.
Britain were physically and morally shattered. Germany, forced into a humiliating surrender treaty at Versailles, would soon be further decimated by runaway inflation that destroyed what was left of its economy.
I was watching, I got sucked into a Netflix docuseries yesterday. And one of the things, so I was trying to find something historical, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to watch. And I'd seen the thing advertised, Hitler's evil circle or axis of, I don't know, baddies, or let's see if I can remember what it was. Here it is. I can show you. Hitler's Circle of Evil. Can you guys see that? Right there on the Netflixies. And I learned really creepy. Well, not really creepy, but I learned that Joseph Goebbels actually was born and grew up an hour and a half from where I live. And before he became involved in the Nazi Party, he worked as a bank clerk at a bank and also as some sort of clerk at the stock exchange in Cologne in the 1930s, I guess, or the late 20s, and until he got fired, and then he went home and lived with mom and dad again. But it just makes me kind of like, to be that, yeah, I don't want to walk on the same streets Goebbels walked on, but I guess, what are you going to do about it? But the thing that I wanted to say was, one of the things I learned from the documentary was in the 1928 election, the Nazi Party did so poorly. They got like 1 point some percent of the vote. They won 12 seats out of 500 in the German parliament. I won't try to pronounce it because, like, off the top of my head, I can't remember if I do it correctly. And it was after the economic crash of the 1929 when the United States called in all the loans that it had given to Germany that the economy collapsed. So this is kind of skipping a bit of, actually there was a point where the German populace were kind of comfortable post-war, and it wasn't until the US, just like with, if you think about it, the United States' financial mismanagement and corrupt capitalism was the seeds for the Second World War, by creating an economic disaster in Europe that opened up the door to right-wing populism. And we done did it again in the 21st century with the subprime mortgages and the problems of the United States under-regulated, enforcement of regulations in its capitalist system caused a bunch of right-wing movements. Oh, this time also in the United States, and not last time too, there was a Klan. But it's the U.S. keeps screwing things up and pushing creating economic disasters that end up creating big populist right-wing threats to democracy. I hadn't really thought about like that before, but that's that you can draw a line to the financial crash and the right wing in both centuries. So,
meanwhile, the United States retreated into isolationism. It was a pause, not a peace. The stage was being set for a new and very much worse disaster, a Second World War, one that would lead to 3 times the deaths of the first one. It would be instigated by a madman who fought for the Kaiser and shared the same dream of world domination.
He's kind of forgetting the German people put him in power. One of the things that I looked up, so we have a museum of National Socialism here in Cologne, and the point of it is to document what happened in Cologne. And I went to the website and looked up one of the subpages about Cologne during the Nazi regime. And it starts off like, there's this common idea that people in Cologne were into the Nazis, but that's not true. There was a lot of support for Hitler's party here in Cologne, and they did a lot of events here. And actually, like, when I went to look at some old Cologne footage, they have audio tapes of Goebbels speaking at events in Cologne. And that, by distilling this problem down to the racism of one guy, really is exculpatory to the anti-Semitism that was shared widely that allowed Hitler to gain the kind of power he did. So it is interesting the way that they want to give white men credit for all of the benefits of the Industrial Revolution without discussing all of the suffering and all of the inequities and all of the oppression, the lack of legal rights of women, the lack of education of women, the continuing, slavery that was going on, the debate around slavery in that time period. Whitewashes all of that. But when it comes to the rise of a massive, genocidal structure being created in a European country, that's just one madman. No, Hitler wasn't a madman who terrorized an entire country. He was enabled, just the way Trump is enabled, by lackeys, by hangers-on, by people with no courage to stand up to him. So it's kind of hard for me to take this selective white man bad narrative that he wants to push.
Had it not been for World War I, we would never have heard of him. I'm Andrew Roberts for Prager University.
Again, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, Hitler was born at that time. If you take away World War I, you might have had a different war. And maybe he would have been killed in it, but maybe he would have rose to power in a different way. Or someone else might have done the same. Or something, even worse insofar as they might have done it in a way that they got away with it for longer and it was still going on. So, okay, well, again, I'm just not particularly, it was easy to make fun of other PragerU videos because I have a bit more background. But I think what was particularly interesting, and as a critique of that one, is to examine the really whitewashing of it. And the way that PragerU only talks about history in a way that is sort of a safe framed structure for preserving, white people's credit. And those people like Hitler, a madman. So anyway, what do you guys have to say here? The great man theory needs to die. I agree. There are so many other structural forces and other things. I mean, structure agency is an interesting interplay. So when it comes to events, how much of them are carried forward by structural processes and formal ways of doing things, how much of it is actually down to the will of individuals who shape those outcomes. The great man theory of history just, tends to look at individuals as if they have all this power to shape history and not look at the context they're operating in or the other institutions and structures around them that limit them or empower them, like hold them back or push them forward. And so I agree. It's lazy historical framing. The Americans didn't retreat into isolationism. They returned to it, but so did everyone else. They adopted austerity to try to prevent their country from going into a depression. Yeah, well, under Hoover, and then we had the whole sort of other side with Roosevelt came along. You get Social Security, you get the Civilian Conservation Corps, you get the Hoover Dam built, you get a bunch of infrastructure as they try to stimulate the economy. How cold is it where you live? Is that just a general question? Oh, sorry, I skipped Wolf here. Oh no, he did not describe Hitler as a madman. That's revisionist off the top and allows other people involved to get away with their actions. Exactly. You anticipated me, Wolf. We were going to come to the same conclusion. You just did it earlier. How cold is it where you live? It's 8 degrees here. Are you talking about Fahrenheit or Celsius? This morning in Cologne, I saw it was 5 degrees when I got up at 8 o'clock. I think it was about 6 or 7 degrees before I came on air. So I still have some of these fruit flies. They seem to just be incredibly resistant to, I hide food and everything and try to clean it up, but I think they get down into my sink where I can't always put bleach or something down the drain. But anyway, I had the window open because I'm kind of hoping either they'll fly out or it'll get cold enough where they just fall asleep and die. And it was 5 degrees, so I think that's 5 times 2 is 10 plus 30 approximately, so 40 degrees. My kitchen's really cold right now. People, no, 250, don't say that. Video is so boring. People are talking about the weather in the chat. They were totally ripping on his his framing of history. So it was fine. 52 degrees Celsius. Fahrenheit is an abomination. It was supposed to be about World War I changing the world. Yeah, I did maybe he actually did script management and they didn't let him put any propaganda in. So that was it was okay. I mean, honestly, I'm worried about doing these and not having a lot to say or not being able to counter it in an intelligent way. But I relied on you guys in the chat. And also I felt a lot less pressure as well to be perfect and know everything like I do on the government ones. So that was fun. Oh my gosh, is it already 1:15? We've been going for a while. So what I think I'll do instead, let's see. I don't want to take a break and then come back because honestly, I don't see the point of taking a break and coming back for all of 5 minutes. So there was, I think more Andy No being he's really attracting a lot of my irritation of late. And for some reason, Twitter seems to have changed the kinds of feeds it gives me, because I'm seeing a lot more Andy No in my timeline because other people follow him. I don't follow him. Why would I? But I inadvertently get exposed to his dumb takes because other people follow him, I think, to go after his dumb takes. And I find him incredibly irritating. So this one I thought was pretty funny. I thought I would share this with you guys. Can y'all see that? My screen, my OBS went away here for a second. But this was, I thought, an excellent point. So Andy No just stopped pretending to have having brain damage, and absolutely nothing came of it. Talk about a lack of commitment to a bit. Andy No integrity. Yeah. What happened to his brain damage? It's not like, it got busted on Joe Rogan, someone points out, but honestly, he was going on and on and on, trying to raise money off of his fake injury. People had some kind of snarky replies I found entertaining. Someone asked, is that where his accent went? Remember when he tried to fake a British accent? To be fair, the Joe Rogan called him out on it big time. There was really nowhere to go with that. But yeah, I think the whole accent thing is pretty funny to point out, is affectation. It's one thing if you spend, like, I spent 8 years living in the UK, listening to British accents all day and learning British words. And when I learn a British word, I learn how to say it with a British accent, like faff. I'm not gonna say faff because I'm not from the South. But yeah, Andy No just completely affected an accent, which is hilarious. All right, Fiona Hill. This is a little update. Fiona Hill, a high-ranking NSC official, official in charge of Russia in the Trump administration. Wording is hard today, peoples. Putin targeted Trump back when he was a businessman, because they do that. Because I know businessmen are corrupt and susceptible to bribery and money and deals that will make them money. In honesty, I think, I've had principled stances against money in elections in the past, because I don't think money is speech. That's a ridiculous premise. It's absolutely ridiculous to say someone with more money has more speech. I think we have to look at making a level playing field when it comes to freedom of expression. So you can't drown other people out because you have a lot of money. But another reason we're going to have to really seriously make an effort to do a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United is that, given the amount of money that politicians need, and given the fact that Russia, China, other countries are interested in interfering with our elections, the politicians' need for money in the United States is increasingly becoming a national security risk. And we see this in the ways that the Lev and his buddy, the Tweedledum and Tweedledummer of the Ukraine, were using money, foreign money, and trying to put it into GOP candidates, and they put it into a Trump PAC. And it's just too dangerous now to not have strict campaign finance regulation. We need stricter controls on who can influence our elections, to make sure that non-citizens cannot influence our elections. Residents of the country they live under the laws. In my opinion, they have any right to express themselves. I don't think they have a right to donate, but they have a right to express their opinions, in that way. But it's making us susceptible to outside influences. I think there's anything else. Oh, one other thing, I did want to shout out. I saw this the other day, and I've put it on my Spotify. I've subscribed to it on my Spotify, which is the entire Mueller report adapted into a podcast narrative told by journalists who broke down the stories and experts providing legal context. It's 15 episodes. It's 13 and a half hours long. Give it a listen. This is not just the Mueller report being read out as an audiobook. They've clustered stuff into topics, and what they do is, like, they have one video or one podcast and they'll take one element of it and they'll give you the background. They'll talk to journalists and they'll read from it as well. Somebody is there, like in the voice of Robert Mueller, reading excerpts from the report that are relevant. So in case, I'll just retweet that out if you are interested. And also some good news to end on. And then I will look at the then I'll look at the chat a little bit more. Virginia Democrats, as you guys might remember, on Tuesday, I think it was, the voters of Virginia finally freed of the gerrymandering imposed on them by white supremacist Republicans, got a fair election, and when they did, Democrats swept. Completely swept. It's like the remedy of this is so much closer now to what the population of Virginia looks like, as opposed to the stranglehold, where Republicans aggressively districted to the point where, basically only white people who agreed with them had any political sway. That being changed, we now have, again, like what America should look like, which is it should have all the Americans, like everyone who's an American should, I don't care, not gonna whitelist you. You gonna block me? You gonna block me? All right. For the first time in Virginia's 400 legislative history, a woman will become Speaker of the House. Women have had the vote in the country since 1919. And yet, in 400 years, they've never had a woman speaker. In the last 100, they've never had a woman. So don't tell me that women and men are, there's no difference between women and men's status in the United States. And she's a white woman. We're not even talking about a woman of color. In terms of having more than having a different area of different intersection. Delegate Eileen Filler-Corn, the current Democratic House leader, won a competitive race for the top spot after Democrats flipped both the House and the Senate in Tuesday's election. Filler-Corn, who will make history as the first Jewish Speaker of the House, beat out 3 other candidates for the position. She is the first woman to serve in her current role as minority leader. On Tuesday, Virginia spoke, she writes, said, and we listened. It's time to govern and usher in a new era in Virginia. As Speaker designee of the House of Delegates, I will be ready to work with all of my colleagues toward a better Commonwealth. The first are not lost on me. The first woman and the first Jewish person elected Speaker designee in our 400-year legislative history. But it doesn't define me. When I joined this body less than 10 years ago, I was the only mom serving with school-aged kids. We have come so far since then, Filler said, touting the legislative body's cultural, gender, and geographic diversity. Best of luck, Speaker-elect. Is that what her title is? Filler-Corn. She seems super sincere about, takes her responsibility and has a humility as well, so good for her. Okay. So 250 asks, how are you going to get that constitutional amendment done when only a minority of one of the 2 parties would support it? Well, this is the thing about constitutional amendments. They take a very long time. You would have to introduce it into the House and the Senate in 2 successive sessions, I believe, and it'd have to be approved there, and then it starts on the statewide process, and you need currently 37 states to approve or ratify the amendment in order to get it through. And here's the thing about amendments, like ERA, Virginia. They're still trying to pass the Equal Rights Amendment from the 1970s, 80s, I think it was, 70s and 80s. The ERA was going on for a long period of time. Another state just ratified it, and there is another push. So even though Phyllis Schlafly and Eagle Forum thought that was all dead and gone, the constitutional amendment is still sort of out there, and it was ratified by like 30-some states. So let's have a look. Tuesday's election results all but guarantee another monumental issue will move itself front and center next year, the battle over the Equal Rights Amendment. Virginia, okay, this is hugely significant that Democrats won because Virginia is one of 13 states that never ratified the ERA. After a quick passage, an easy passage in Congress in 1971 and 1972, that was the year I was born. Okay. The ERA was sent to the states where it needed 38, not 37, legislatures to approve it. In the first year, 30 states ratified the constitutional amendment, including Wyoming, South Dakota, and Iowa. Sorry, not Iowa. Idaho. Why do I always I always think another state is Iowa and it's not. Idaho, states who we now look at as some of the most conservative. But from there, things slowed down as opposition mounted. Here. No new states took up the cause, leaving the deadline expired without the additional 3 states. That is, until 2017, that year, Nevada became the 36th state. I lied. Nevada became the 36th state to ratify the ERA. Then in 2018, Illinois became the 37th. Earlier this year, the Virginia Senate voted to ratify the ERA, but the Republican-controlled House blocked the full vote. But now, with Virginia House changing to Democratic control, the 38th state is almost guaranteed putting the Equal Rights Amendment over the line. So, in politics, I know we tend to think in terms of immediacy, but I tend to think about politics in terms of decades. And you set change in motion for later on. You know, Obamacare came out in, 2010, 2011, but it just is not popular until almost a decade later. People like Obamacare now. They hated it when it first came out. They didn't understand it. They were resistant. They were demonizing it. The website didn't work. But after almost a decade of having enrollment opportunities and experience with it, people really like it. So I tend to think about politics as more than just this congressional session. You have to play the long game. You have to play for in generations ahead. All right. What do you guys know? Integrity. What are you putting? Just add that link to the description box. I don't know what you're saying. I'm going to scroll down. Sorry. Just because I'm going to be wrapping up the show here. What do I think about Joe Manchin saying he won't vote for Bernie over Trump in a general election? I think ask him again when we have a nominee. Honestly, I think that this sort of early bird, commit to something in a situation. If Joe Manchin's got to look out for himself and his reelection because we need him in his seat, and I think that at this point, it's pretty pointless. I'm not going to hate on Joe Manchin for doing something that he needs to do in this sense, because this is a meaningless statement. Honestly. Unless Bernie is the nominee, that's a meaningless statement. Until you have a nominee, you don't have a real statement. And I personally really resent the way that it's always Bernie supporters. Not all of them. # not all Bernie supporters. But they're saying, oh, will you promise to vote for Bernie if he wins? Nobody else is doing that. Nobody else has to do that. So, no, I'm not going to... we know what Joe Manchin is. And people can hate on Joe Manchin, and I get why you're upset with conservative Democrats, but the fact is I would rather have a conservative Democrat who votes 95% of the time the way I want, and 5% in order to keep his seat. Because you know what he's doing with that 5% of the time that he's doing something I don't want? He's stopping a Republican from doing 100% of the things I don't want. And I know for some people that kind of pragmatism is just anathema, but for me, again, I'm long-term. I'm playing for the long game. I'm thinking about change over time, not being mad at somebody on Twitter today. Mueller Report 1, just a suggestion as my Twitter feed is a mess. Oh, okay. Here, I'll just make you a mod, and then that way if you want to link it, you can. Wield your power responsibly, Wolf. There you go. So if you want to share that now with people, you can do that, and they can check it out in the chat. Well, this was oh, yeah, you want to see another random thing about British politics? 12-point lead for Labour. Bad night for the Brexit Party. Labour numbers improving. Again, speaking is becoming hard, so I'm going to have to definitely end the show here. Conservatives on 41, Labour on 29, Lib Dems on 16, and Brexit Party down 5 on 6, according to Delta Poll. We will see. We will see. It's still a long ways out to the election. All right, am I missing any comments? Otherwise, I think what I'll do is change my view. Got a haircut this week. You can see my fringe is very tidy. So I look very, yeah, that's like my Betty Boop. Louise, oh, why am I forgetting her name? 1920s icon with her hair. I think all I have to say at this point, guys, is that I will most likely be doing a show with Kev, because we do. What? And I am currently trying to work up a little video, an actual video about Sargon, where I fact check him and all of the mistakes he made in that Orange Man Bad Democratic debate video, because it's still, I find it annoying how wrong he is. So I'm going through and I've got little things that assertions he makes, and then people like Nancy Pelosi proving him wrong, or Judge Napolitano from Fox News blowing him out of the water. So, all right, I will quickly, I'll click on this. Is this the Mueller report that you're linking? Oh yeah, that's it. That's the report link if everyone else wants to go and check it out. I subscribe via Spotify, but I think you can use Stitcher and a couple other things. And again, it is not just reading out the report, it is an actual sort of like context, legal experts and reporters as well. Carl's gonna love seeing you as a mod for Christie. Oh, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Like, as long as you behave yourself, you can be a mod. That's how I work. How is UKIP party doing? UKIP is nowhere. UKIP can't even get its own party member or party leader to show up at its conferences. So, yeah, Hamilton. That's in case you were wondering. Alexander Hamilton. Rocking that shirt today. All right, I am just waffling. I am going to log off. You guys have a great afternoon. Thank you for stopping by, spending some time with me. I do appreciate it. And I have no reason to think that I won't have a show next Sunday. Although, as I said last night on the happy hour, I am going to basically be relocating myself to the UK for the end of October, like 29th through ultimately the 17th of December. So it will, I don't know how we're going to do the live shows then, but until the end of November, I will be here on a Wednesday, or sorry, not a Wednesday, on a Sunday for Weekend Winters and Happy Hours with Kevin. You guys have a great rest of the day. Have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever it is, whenever it is you are. And, oh, now I got to get up the, sorry, I was all ready to stop the stream, but that's actually not going to stop the stream. I have to stop the stream in a special way on YouTube now. So let me cue that up so I don't have an awkward ending. Too late. All right, guys. I've been Christy. You've been awesome. Thank you all, and see you soon.